The Middle East is once again at the center of global attention, and what happened in the Persian Gulf on March 14 could reshape the balance of power in the region for years to come. In the early hours of the morning, around 1:30 a.m. local time, the United States launched one of the most intense and coordinated air operations seen in modern military history against Kharg Island, a small but extremely strategic island that serves as the backbone of Iran's oil exports and a critical base for the naval forces of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. What unfolded over the next 2 hours was not a routine military strike or a limited drone operation. Instead, it was a carefully planned bombardment involving some of the most powerful aircraft in the American arsenal. According to reports from United States Central Command, the operation involved B-52 Stratofortress bombers, B-1B Lancer aircraft, and the stealth powerhouse B-2 Spirit, all working together in a synchronized assault. These aircraft were loaded not with ordinary bombs, but with specialized bunker-busting munitions designed to penetrate thick reinforced concrete and explode deep underground. Each of these weapons can weigh around a ton and is specifically engineered to destroy hardened military infrastructure that conventional explosives cannot easily reach. For more than 2 hours, these bombers carried out wave after wave of strikes targeting key military installations across Kharg Island. Intelligence sources later indicated that roughly 90 separate targets were hit during the operation. These were not random structures. They included anti-ship missile batteries, cruise missile launch shelters, underground ammunition storage areas, naval mine depots, radar installations, and command and control centers that had been built and fortified over decades. These facilities formed the backbone of Iran's ability to threaten shipping lanes in the Persian Gulf, and most importantly, the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz, through which a large percentage of the world's oil supply passes every day. By destroying these installations in a single coordinated operation, the strike effectively crippled a large portion of Iran's naval deterrence capabilities in the region. Military analysts describe the attack as a move designed not just to damage infrastructure, but to blind and silence Iran's surveillance and early warning systems in the Gulf. For residents and workers on Kharg Island, the night was terrifying. Witnesses reported hearing thunderous explosions as the ground shook beneath them. Shockwaves from the bunker-buster bombs reportedly traveled across the water and were even felt in parts of mainland Iran in Bushehr province, where port cities lie just across the Gulf from the island. Flames and smoke reportedly rose from multiple locations as underground facilities were struck and detonated. However, one crucial detail quickly became clear after the attack. The United States had deliberately avoided targeting the island's oil infrastructure. Despite the intensity of the bombardment, the oil terminals, storage tanks, and loading facilities that handle the majority of Iran's crude exports remained untouched. This was not an accident. Kharg Island is not just a military outpost, it is the economic heart of Iran's oil industry. Nearly 90% of Iran's oil exports pass through this small coral island, which is only about 22 square kilometers in size. Massive storage tanks capable of holding tens of millions of barrels of crude oil dominate its landscape, and huge tankers arrive regularly to transport oil to global markets. Because most of Iran's coastline is too shallow for supertankers to dock, Kharg Island effectively functions as the country's primary gateway to the global oil trade. Destroying these facilities would have had enormous consequences far beyond Iran's borders. Oil prices could have surged instantly, triggering an energy crisis affecting major economies from Europe to Asia. Countries like China and India, both of which rely heavily on energy imports from the Gulf, would likely have faced immediate disruptions. By leaving the oil infrastructure untouched while destroying military targets, Washington appeared to be sending a very specific message. The operation was aimed at military deterrence, not economic warfare. This approach also prevented Iran from portraying itself as a victim of an attack on its civilian economy in front of the international community. Interestingly, signs suggested that Iranian authorities had anticipated the possibility of an attack even before it happened. Satellite observations reportedly indicated that many of the island's oil storage tanks had been gradually emptied in the weeks leading up to the strike. In mid-January, most of the tanks were full, but by early March, only a handful remained at capacity. This suggested that Tehran had been trying to reduce the potential losses in case Kharg Island became a target. But while oil reserves could be moved elsewhere, the heavily fortified military installations could not. These underground missile bunkers, radar stations, and naval facilities had been constructed over decades, particularly after the Iran-Iraq War, when Iraq repeatedly targeted Kharg Island in an attempt to cripple Iran's oil exports. After that war, Iran invested enormous resources into strengthening the island's defenses, installing advanced air defense systems, and reinforcing critical infrastructure. The belief within Iranian leadership was that such defenses would ensure the island could never again be easily neutralized. Yet the events of March 14 appear to have challenged that assumption. The aftermath of the strike quickly escalated tensions across the region. Unable to respond directly to the overwhelming air power used in the operation, Iranian officials began issuing warnings directed at neighboring countries that host American military forces. In particular, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps issued statements suggesting that locations hosting U.S. forces in the United Arab Emirates could become potential targets. Ports, docks, and facilities where American personnel might be present were described as legitimate military objectives. Such statements immediately raised alarm across the Gulf because the UAE is one of the region's most important economic and shipping hubs. Cities like Dubai and Abu Dhabi serve as key centers for global trade, logistics, and maritime transportation. Any threat to these locations could ripple through international supply chains. If tensions were to escalate further and missiles were launched toward ports or shipping routes in the Gulf, the consequences could extend far beyond the region. Maritime insurance costs for ships traveling through the Persian Gulf would likely skyrocket almost immediately. Shipping companies could reroute vessels or suspend operations altogether, creating delays and shortages in global supply chains. The impact would not only be felt in the Middle East, but also in markets around the world, from Europe to Asia. Prices for energy, food, and manufactured goods could rise as shipping costs increase. Ironically, such disruptions would also affect countries that maintain economic ties with Iran, including major energy consumers like China and India, whose trade routes depend heavily on stable Gulf shipping lanes. For now, the situation remains extremely tense, but uncertain. The strike on Kharg Island represents more than just a military operation. It marks a turning point in a complex geopolitical struggle involving regional power dynamics, global energy security, and the fragile stability of one of the world's most important trade corridors. Whether this incident leads to further escalation or eventually pushes diplomatic efforts toward de-escalation remains to be seen. What is clear, however, is that the events of that single night have already reshaped perceptions of power and vulnerability in the Persian Gulf. And as the world watches closely, the question remains, will this confrontation expand into a wider conflict, or will cooler heads prevail before the region moves closer to the brink? What do you think about these developments and the potential impact on global stability and trade? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep analyses on global geopolitics and major world events, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the next update.